You can monetize absolutely everything, but there comes a point where you're like, oh, I've stopped myself from making friends, or I've stopped myself from exploring different parts of my life because there was no financial profit to be gained there, but there was an emotional profit or a creative profit to be gained there. FYI, most of this is not advice, it's just decisions I made when I was a different version of myself. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more. Hi, I'm Alexa. For those of you who don't know me, I went viral on TikTok like pretty much everyone else in 2020 and 2021 for talking about my life. I stopped making blood when I was 18 from this rare blood disorder, and then after that I got into stripping, and after that I moved to New York City and then got into like a whole different type of strip club that I'll talk about more in this video. So I just kind of wanted to go into my experience with the industry, particularly stripping and sugar babying, how I got in and also how I got out, because I feel like people don't talk about an exit plan or an exit strategy from this industry that does have a very short shelf life, unfortunately. Part 1, why I started. So when I was 18, I moved to Chicago for college, and about like 4 weeks into my freshman year, 3 weeks, I was barely there. I started bleeding internally to death, thought I was gonna die for like a long time. We'll do a whole other video on that another day. Anyway, you need to know that because what you need to know is that by the time I get out of that situation, I'm 19 years old, I'm in partial remission, which means that I'm not quite at the capacity of making blood that other normal people are, but I'm still finally like well enough to kind of drive myself to school, do a couple of classes, but I still need like the handicap parking pass. But I had at least 10K in that medical debt and then went to collections. And so I like, before I even had a chance to get a credit score, I was already kind of fucked and I owed all this money. I was really trying to start my life over. And I wanted so badly to just be able to forget, leave the trauma behind. But then every fucking day I would get a phone call being like, hi, you owe this money from the worst time of your life. In my mind, my stupid little, 19-year-old mind, I was like, okay, if I get the phone calls and the debt collectors to stop, I'm gonna be able to move on with my life because I'll be at a clean slate like every other 19-year-old. It'll be like nothing ever happened. LOL. Yeah, honestly too, I was just very depressed and angry. It was like such a lonely time. I could not relate to anyone my own age because everyone, 18, 19 years old, freshman year of college, like you're going out to parties and you're hooking up and you're like getting in trouble and you're having fun and you're like discovering what it means to be an adult. And I felt like I only understood the worst part about being an adult, which is like the ticking time of like, oh my God, I'm gonna die soon, I'm gonna die soon, I'm gonna die soon. And I knew nothing about like the fun parts of being an adult. So I felt like I had seen the end of the movie without getting to experience anything in the middle. One night, I was like very drunk, I'd started drinking, and very alone, and I was Googling Survivors Club because I was like, okay, there's gotta be some kind of club for people in my age group who have experienced what I've experienced. So I was looking up Survivors Club that night, and the first thing that pops up, like at the bottom of the first page, I guess, is like Survive the Club. No, Survive the Club is actually a blog for strippers written by strippers about wellness tips, mental health, and just like the emotional side of being a stripper. So I was reading through the blogs and like she had of course like a baby dancer section, like a tips for new dancers. And I was kind of shocked to realize that a lot of the tips for new dancers was like conversation skills. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, like I already do this in my real fucking life anyway. Like what would be the difference of doing this in lingerie or a bikini? Like there is no difference. There is, I'll get to that, but at the time that's what I was thinking. And when I say I was already doing this in my real life, what I mean is I was getting hit on a lot more by like dudes with kids, like people with ex-wives, people with wives, people with children, like men I considered to be adult were talking to me, and I still really considered myself to be a child. Like I think I got asked out like 3 times by people who had like previously been dating my teachers, and I remember being like, what the f is this old man doing talking to me? Like I'm a little girl, but then I realized like they liked me because, I mean, this is sick and it's sad, but I realized that they liked that I was young because they thought that I was malleable and innocent and cute. And I was all those things in a way, but another part of me was like, no one has any idea looking at me that I actually am so traumatized by this experience that's way past my age group that I'm probably a little bit harder to manipulate in and out of situations. You can like play the fake innocent, like play the fake lamb, just seem like very sweet and like you don't really know what's going on, they'll flock and you won't really have to do anything. You can just talk and talk and talk, and the second that they try to violate a boundary, or the second that they try to ask you for anything like sexually suggestive or whatever, you can like freak out and be like, wait, what? Da, 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 da. You know, and they'll feel embarrassed because you are clearly so young and like innocent that they'll back off. Or if they don't back off, someone will come to protect you because you're young and you're innocent. Real quick, I just want to acknowledge here that this is obviously like a white privilege thing, a thin privilege thing, or a pretty privilege thing, depending on like what angle you're coming from it at. Take that with a grain of salt. This section isn't applicable to everybody. Also, when I started at the club, I had a couple rules to keep myself safe from the predatory dangers of the industry. One was to not believe anything that anyone ever says, ever. Be skeptical of everything. 2 was to never date anyone that works in the club or visits the club. Do not be romantically involved with anyone you meet there. And 3 was no drugs, which is ironic considering where my life is at right now. If anyone's ever seen the movie The Favorite, like that's the character I think I've always related to the most, is the one that Emma Stone? Yeah, that Emma Stone plays. Because she's just constantly like putting herself in damsel in distress situations and then twisting the knife like the second someone comes to save her. And so that was kind of my plan. So yeah, I kind of made up my mind after reading that blog that night that I was going to be a dancer, mostly because I was already getting all the male attention, but I needed money, and I was like looking at the numbers that she was saying, and I was just like, holy like a bad night is $200, a bad night is $300. So I go to the club in my hometown and I go, you know, I'm 19 years old, like I'm inquiring, da 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 da. I would like to work here, but I was just wondering if I could look around and see, you know, kind of the vibe, see if I'm ready for it. Like I've never danced before. They're like, sure. Then this older woman comes over. Her name was Summer. And she had started at the club when she was like 18 years old. She was like in her 40s now when she was talking to me. And she still had like all of her same regulars from like when she was 18 years old who still came to see her like every single week. She's talking to me. She's like, okay, well, usually here they make you do like an amateur night performance first, which there's like an amateur night once a month at the club, and it's like a bunch of different girls, they all perform. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that, like that's like really intense for me. I just kind of want to get the money and get out. Like I don't want everyone to see me. I want to be a little low-key. And I was like, do you think you can get me around it? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So she got me in. I started working, and I only worked at the club for like 6 weeks for a couple of reasons. In those like 6 weeks I made like $3,000, and I was like definitely the least talented dancer there. So I was like, fuck yeah. I made enough money for the plane ticket and for like that semester of college that I had already done to pay that tuition in full. But it was very awkward for me. Here's the thing about me, I had really not had sex before dancing. My virginity, I remember not wanting to go to college a virgin, so I like got really drunk and went to like the neighbor boy's house and hooked up with him, or tried to, but I'm pretty sure like he never, like I'm pretty sure he just that's a little explicit. And I also had just gotten my first boyfriend. We were not having sex either because his I could not, there was nothing I could do. I didn't think it would make me insecure, but it did make me really insecure, like being in the club, being in that environment, and having never like really had sex with anyone before. But regardless, you know, I still got dances, I still got clients, and a lot of the guys who would spend the most money on me would be like other like PTSD dudes. I wasn't much of a hustler, I wasn't good at it, but I was a good listener, and we would just sit and kind of hold each other and just talk about it. Even though I was like probably the lowest earner at the club and was just making like 150, 200 average after profit, or after tip out, it was still 3 times the amount of money I would have been making at any other job. So it was worth it. Like it was a little embarrassing, but I made the money I needed to make and I got out. The main reason I quit dancing in North Dakota was because I knew I wasn't ready. Even though I'm like laughing now, making light of all that, it was a lot of stress that I didn't need, that I thought would solve a lot of problems that were gonna get solved in other ways, but I was just in too much of a rush, and that's like a lot of just being a young adult. And I think it's really important when you are under the age of 25 and your frontal cortex is not fully formed, is to be able to recognize when you are not ready for something. I am proud of myself for like kind of removing myself from that situation and saying, you know what, the strip club will always be there, I can always come back whenever. Part 2, North Dakota to New York. So then I come to New York, and the New York strip club, sex work, sugar baby, pretty money industry is like completely different. And I'm like, okay, like I am probably not going to be doing strip club stuff, but I did like the conversation. So maybe I can find someone on Seeking who is looking for maybe like a more platonic partner or something like that, because Seeking was all the rage at the time. And then I fell in love. Of course, now that I'm like having sex and like in love with this person, I don't want to be in a sugar daddy seeking arrangement situation where my sugar daddy is gonna like expect that we are having sex. So I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna try to get back into dancing or maybe promo for strip clubs. The reason why I was like pretty dead set on getting back in the sex work scene after I got here was because it was still the best option mathematically speaking. Like the numbers just only make sense there. And I was like, there's so much money in New York. Like this is a city where the richest men on earth live. Like there's just no fucking way that I'm gonna be working like a regular job when I could propel myself and get myself on the level of all these other kids I'm gonna be competing with for the jobs I want. Because I knew I wanted to be in media, but all the media people throughout the world, but especially in New York, they're all like kids of lawyers, doctors, people who can afford to like pay for their apartment while they work minimum wage at their internships, you know? I go on Craigslist, I'm looking both for internships and for gigs, and I find this one that's like, seeking women who love hate nightlife for VIP event, blah, blah, blah. And I knew the way the ad was written, they were trying to make a strip club sound like it was not a strip club. And so I was like, okay, they're like looking for like normal girls who like don't want to work at a strip club but want to make a lot of extra money, so they're going to be in that, again, like I was talking about earlier in the video, that like fake innocence, like Trojan horse, like lamb type thing, like pretending that you're innocent and sweet so that you have to do less work. I was like, that's perfect. That's perfect for me. So I apply for the position, and they ask you to send a bunch of photos, and I'm like nervous. I'm like waiting. I'm like, oh my God, what if they don't get back to me, whatever. And then I see that they like approve my photos. They invite me in for an interview, and I'm not even gonna go into this whole club or whatever, because that's like for a different video. It's a very notorious club in New York. It's closed now, and it's essentially like supposed to be a VIP only like guest list. Like you have to prove that you make certain income requirements to be allowed to come, and then any guests you bring have to be like vetted or vouched for or whatever. And there were still a ton of guys there and a ton of girls, but it was just like the men you were dealing with were so much wealthier than the guys at the place I started at in North Dakota that it was like crazy. Like the guys in North Dakota would like hassle you for $100. Like the ugliest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life would be like, you're not even that hot, and like take his 20 away from you. But here at this club, like you would just be standing there minding your own business, and someone would come up to you and be like, hi, do you want to do 5 songs? And you'd be like, okay, sure. And like go back, and you had $100 in, God, 20 minutes. What is, hold on, 5 times 3, 15 minutes. You'd have like 100. Is that right? And my first night I made $600 or something, $650, doing like nothing, bro. Like, another quick caveat here, I'm saying easy money as in like for me at that time, as still someone coming out of disability, a disabled person, it was easy physically on my body, which sounds kind of insane because dancer is a physically active job, but it's your ability to control when you're working, how long you're working, and if you're sitting, dancing, or what you're actually doing during those hours. Versus if I had like a server job where you need to be on your feet and at like kind of the whim and call of whatever happens to come into the restaurant. That's what I mean when I say easy. I don't mean to imply that this is an easy field, because it's not, but it is a lot more joyful at times, and you do have a lot more agency, and it was physically less taxing on me than other jobs that made the same amount of tip money would have been. It was like so much fun, easy money. I was just partying, dancing, hanging out, and all the girls were so beautiful. Like, oh my God. It was like Instagram baddies. It was like models who weren't getting booked. Like, it was really like beautiful women. I was like shocked and honored that I even got to be there. I'm just gonna wrap up the video because it's gonna be like 2 hours long if I keep talking in depth. I'll do like a more in-depth thing about that club and about like all the other places I ended up working in the scene after. But this is how I got out of the industry. Part 3, why I left. So why did I get out? Well, I got out for a couple of reasons. One, I got out because I had already like made all my goals. So I had about like $10,000 in my investment account by the time I graduated college. and then I had paid off all of my medical debt, I paid off all of my college loan debt, and I had paid every single additional semester of college in full because there was a certain point where I couldn't get approved for any more loans. And the internship ended up turning into a job that paid about the same amount I was making dancing. The other reason I kind of stopped dancing and stopped doing all this stuff is because I did start making less money. Like eventually, if your shtick is like innocent young new girl, you eventually like run out of clients because, well, you don't run out of clients, but you run out of people who don't know you, because a lot of the guys who come keep coming back for like 5 years and they're like, oh, I know her birthday, like I know that girl, like she's not new. It does take a lot of romantic energy out of you sometimes. And I didn't realize that as much until the milk and lasagna video, which for those of you who don't know, like that was like the video that made me pop off on TikTok. It was like a video diary about this like kind of one night stand that turned into like a little weekend like romance. And it was just like this normal dude who was very sweet. And it was like the first time that I had, I don't know, had like a romantic connection with someone who I could see being like good for me in my real life. When you get into the industry like a little too long, you get really jaded because you get a lot of shitty boyfriends that everyone gets in their early 20s, but also you see every single type of man coming and cheating on their wives or their girlfriends, or like warning you. Like every single client would tell me like, don't have kids, don't get married, it straps you, it ruins you, you'll have no freedom, like warning you about all the stuff that you were supposed to be excited about. So you kind of are like, okay, maybe this shit's not for me, like maybe I'm an idiot to think that like a healthy normal relationship is for me, like whatever, I'm just gonna hang out with like these wild boys who do stupid shit, or I'm gonna just like always be with people who are emotionally unstable because I'm emotionally unstable and that's the only person that could ever understand me. I was at dinner with my sugar daddy and I was like looking around the room and it was just like a bunch of girls that kind of look like me with like their super cute boyfriends, and like another table of a bunch of young people came in and I was like, fuck, like how is this my life? Like I'm the only one in here with a dude twice her age, and I want to be here with like someone I'm in love with. Like I want to be in here with someone who I can connect with and can build a future with and a life with. And I didn't think I wanted that, but I kind of realized at that moment and after like meeting that guy that, oh, I do want that. Like I did want that, and maybe it was possible for me. I had always thought about a financial future, I had always thought about a career future and friends, but I had never really thought about a romantic future. I've been on fucking 6 dates with this sugar daddy, and I haven't been on a single fucking date with a guy my own age in a year and a half because I've never prioritized it because there was no money involved. And you know, when you're in your early 20s, it's like kind of fun because you're like, well, fuck that. I'm not going to that promoter dinner because they're not going to pay me, so I'm not fucking going. Well, fuck that. I'm not going to go on a date anymore unless it's a sugar daddy because they're not paying me and they're just going to cheat on me. And so whatever, I would rather like be paid to exist, pretty much. You can monetize absolutely everything, but there comes a point where you're like, oh, I've stopped myself from making friends, or I've stopped myself from exploring different parts of my life because there was no financial profit to be gained there, but there was an emotional profit or a creative profit to be gained there. The first year of my office job, I did not quit dancing or sugar babying. I was still going out because I wanted to keep making the money, keep making the money, keep making the money. Like I still felt like a fucking idiot if I wasn't constantly profiting off of a fun time because the option was there. And that's the kind of mindset that always saved me and helped push me and helped me be in a better setup than a lot of people in my generation. But at the same time, it's the kind of thing that limited me in other ways, like socially and romantically. And so now I'm at the point where, okay, I'm financially like a little bit more secure. Now that I have that security that I wanted so badly, I can pursue other parts of myself, and I can like go on dates with people who maybe aren't like millionaires or aren't super cool drug dealers, but like maybe they're just like actually like a good partner for me and would maybe like be a good father or something one day. Or I can like spend hours filming a YouTube video or writing, and it's like, okay, this probably won't make me any money, but I have a voice and I'm leaving a little bit of a footprint, and maybe it'll inspire another person who's watching this video about reading this blog that's going to start their whole journey for themselves, you know? Love you. Thanks for watching. The little following that I do have just makes my whole day and makes me feel so happy and connected and human again. thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, you guys make me so happy. You've been the best part of this very, very difficult year I've had. So thank you.